Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. But these guys, from what I gather, are supposed to be very highly regarded, and this was another beer that I came across quite randomly when I was at Kiosk over in Copenhagen, and they seem to have a very good selection of American beers these days. So I'll try to remember to put the link to their web shop in the video description for you guys to take a look at below. But for this review then, we are going to head out to the west coast, to the state of California, and a little town called Auburn in the northern part of the state, just to the northeast of Sacramento. And we're going to have a look at my first beer from Moonraker Brewing Company. So this one is called the Bubble Dust. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, double IPA. So, yeah, when I was in Kiosk, they had a selection of a couple of different Moonraker Brewing Company beers, and I hadn't heard of this brewery at the time actually. So as is often the case with some of these American beers, we tend to get them in bursts. So yeah, a few different beers from the one brewery or from the one geographical location. And yeah, I just picked this one because I like the artwork on it, I have to say. So as I've told you on the channel before, I have a background in chemistry and astrophysics, and this one just reminded me of some of the microscopy pictures and stuff that I'd seen during my chemistry studies. So I thought this one was pretty cool. So yeah, that's how I choose my beers, if there's a couple of things from the same brewery. And yeah, but as I say, from what I gather, this brewery are very highly regarded, and this is supposed to be another very nice IPA. The other thing that caught my eye about this, of course, was the Citra Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin hop combination. That is usually a winning mixture actually. I always like Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin together. So yeah, this one should be a very nice beer, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on it as well. I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, especially because it is such a highly regarded Californian craft brewery actually, and I've not had too many different New England IPAs from the American West Coast. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I said, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer, and let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Moonraker Brewing Company. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to very regularly these days because we are getting such a good selection of different things from different American states. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Moonraker Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Moonraker Brewing Company, as I've told you before, are based in Auburn in Northern California, just a bit to the northeast of Sacramento, and the company was founded by Dan Powell along with his wife Karen back in 2014. So they'd been avid homebrewers for a number of years, and in 2015 they invited Zach Frasher to join their new business. At that time Zach was working part-time at Marat's Brewing Company, and he was also working at the homebrewing shop where Dan and Karen were buying a lot of their supplies. But he traded beers with friends across the country, and so at that time he was really interested in the New England Hazy IPA, and he was working quietly away on some new recipes of his own, and that was what would make it into Moonraker Brewing Company, and that was the thing that would eventually give this brewery their name. So Dan actually has an extensive background in renewable energy, and so the brewery was fittingly opened on Earth Day of 2016. That's the 22nd of April for those of you that don't know, and they built a brew house completely from scratch from what I understand, and it was equipped with over 1,100 solar panels, which powers the complete operation. It's an electrically run brewing system that they have, but the brewery became highly decorated very early on with their Yojo IPA, which caused a bit of a stir both as a hazy IPA as well as the fact that it was sold in cans, which is 100% recyclable of course, but they also, you know, very quickly after this had to increase their brewing capacity threefold in 2017 from what I understand, and they've also added various other pieces of equipment to the brewery over the years, such as fodders and barrels and things like that, that to brew sour beers. Zach Frasher went on to leave the company in April 2019 after 4 years as the head brewer, and he has also founded Slice Brewing Company in Lincoln, from what I understand these days. Moonraker Brewing Company, though, are still doing very strong. They are still going very strong, I should say. They're doing very strongly, yeah, they're doing some really, really interesting beers. As I said, these guys really made their name with the New England Hazy IPAs, and as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 300 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. They've got an on-site tap room, and they are, as I say, continually expanding the number of beers that they've done and their brewing capacity. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Moonraker Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. You can check out the brewery website, and you can check out the Instagram and the Facebook pages to keep up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest releases and stuff, I'm sure, as well. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. Make sure you check out all those links in the video description below. But as I said to you at the start of the video, the artwork on this one, I have to say, is quite fabulous. It really reminds me of some of the microscopy, the electron microscopy pictures that I would have seen during my my chemistry days. I always enjoyed looking at some of the materials under the electron microscope, the SEM. It's always good fun. There you can see the Moonraker Brewing Company symbol, bubble dust, and as I said to you, this one has Citra, Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin hops in it. So Citra, we know, about 14% alpha acid normally, lovely big mangoey notes and a lot of different tropical fruit complexities. Mosaic has that lovely kind of juicy tangerine note to it, again another American hop, 13 to 14% alpha acid. Nelson Sauvin has that green, white, grapey sort of thing, and that's a New Zealand hop, and that one actually can come in at 16% alpha acid. That one is a bit of a beast. It's got a hell of a spice to it if you use it as an early edition hop rather than a late edition one. But yeah, really nice artwork on this one. I probably will keep this can just because the artwork is quite fabulous actually. I think it's really interesting. To an extent as well, it actually reminds me of the old Solero, the little Solero shot ice cream that we used to have back home in Scotland when I was younger. It reminds me of that as well. But yeah, kind of like the inside of a soda. You can see that bubble dust there. I have to say, I just thought this was really cool. I liked the name, I liked the artwork, and that was the reason for picking this one over some of the others. I'm not sure if they did actually have the Yojo IPA, but if I'd known that that was quite an iconic beer, I probably would have got that one. But yeah, we went for this one instead. That's how it goes. So I will need to get up to Auburn in California at some stage and get a hold of the Yojo. We'll need to see about that. But yeah, this one is a 473ml can, which is 1 US pint. As I always tell you in the American reviews, their measurement system does not make sense. It really just does not. Cups and quarts and all of these kind of things, no. Use the metric system, guys. It's based on water. I keep telling you guys. But you know, as I've said, we get 440ml IPA cans in Europe, so the Americans actually get more beer than we do, so we shouldn't make so much fun as we do. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The Bubble Dust New England Hazy Double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from Auburn in Northern California over on the west coast of the US. Let's see how we go. And I have to say already, this beer looks absolutely lovely. But you can see we've got about somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of it out of the can already. And it looks absolutely lovely, I have to say. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely kind of light yellow colour, this one. This one looks a little bit like a kind of pineapple juice or something like that. I always like to use different fruit juices as the frame of reference for these New England IPAs because they really do just look like fruit juices or something. So this one looks a little bit between kind of pineapple juice and mango juice, I would say. You can see that the beer itself poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy perfect white head. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall it does look very nice, and for an 8%er it does have a fair little bit of that soupy kind of gloopy sort of thing to it. By no means is it the thickest 8% New England double IPA that I've come across, but it certainly does have a good degree of haze to it, and that is exactly what you want with these beers. As I've told you before, the haze tends to go up as the alcohol content goes up. More oats, more wheat, that's what gives you your haze in this one. So yeah, this one I have to say looks pretty damn nice. So let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious about this beer. Ooh, now that smells really nice actually. first thing you're going to notice about this is the hops all come across. The thing that this beer really highlights is just the softness of the fruits that you can get out of these hops. And this one, I'm pretty sure a lot of the hops that they've listed here will be late addition and you know, dry hopped. That's where this one's getting a lot of its fruity aroma for. But yeah, on first impression, this beer, I think it's got a very good balance between the wheat and the oats. As I've told you in some of the other videos, I always find that more wheatiness gives the beer a little bit of bitiness, such as the kind of Trillium New England IPAs, whereas the oats give you a little bit more of a kind of smooth and creamy effect, such is the case with the Treehouse New England IPAs. And this one seems as if it's kind of straddling the line in between those. You do get a bit of that wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, but in the middle of the nose you're getting that nice kind of big smooth oaty creaminess. And of course it does depend on what type of wheat you use as well. Some wheats are a bit spicier or a bit smoother or a bit more bitey than some of the other ones. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one and kind of break that down a little bit more. But yeah, it is absolutely lovely. I'm going to say that straight away with this one. So yeah, malty side of things then. When you take the beer in a little bit more deeply, you are going to get that nice kind of bitey, wheaty sort of thing out of it. You can smell that at the back of the nose. You've got a lovely big kind of smooth white bready quality to the beer, as well as a nice kind of smoother and slightly thicker kind of creamy note to this one. And I think the more that I smell this beer, the more it leans towards that kind of creamy side of things actually. I don't really get any biscuity notes out of this one, which you can sometimes get from these New England IPAs. There's maybe a tiny little hint of like a you know, a kind of butter candy Werther's Original type thing coming out of this one. That's been a common trend with the New England IPAs over here in Scandinavia. A lot of breweries have been adding a little bit of Munich or Cara Munich or Vienna malt and stuff to them, just to give them a little bit of a kind of more oily sweet malt base. But this one to me strikes me as being more kind of straight up wheat and oats. But I've got a feeling the more that I smell this, I think the wheat, the bitiness of the wheat also starts to become a little bit more prominent, but also the oaty creaminess kind of stands out a little bit more too. But the malt base for me strikes me as being very much a kind of straight shooter, and I like that about it. I do wonder, just from some of the other vibes I'm getting out of the malt base, there could well be a little bit of Pilsner malt or something in this one. And Pilsner malt, as I've told you, it's a pain in the ass to describe that, because it's really, it's more that you can just smell the crispness in the beer, and I do start to feel this one getting a little bit more crisp and a little bit more bitey the more that I concentrate on the aroma of the malt base. But yeah, it's got kind of what you would expect, I should say, for a New England double IPA. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer, because these are of course very hop forward beers. On the hoppy side of things then, there's a nice little bit of there's a nice little touch of earthiness to this one. I think that's the mosaic that's giving you that. That is quite minimal. The green side of the hops really leans towards that big floral aromaticity. As I've told you before, when it comes to hop additions, if you add the hops earlier on in the boil, that's when you get more bitterness out of them, and as you go along later into the boil, that's when you get the trade-off between hoppy bitterness and kind of flavour and aroma. The flavour and aroma starts to overtake the proclivity of the bitterness, if you like, the kind of prominence of the bitterness. So yeah, I think most of the hops that will have been added into this one will be late addition. There could be a little bit of like Columbus or something in this one that has been used as a bittering hop. I do get a little bit of spiciness from the beer, so it wouldn't surprise me if there is Columbus or maybe Tomahawk or something like this that has been used as the bittering hop. Zeus is another option, and of course the CTZ blend that they have, Columbus, Tomahawk, Zeus, which is quite commonly used on the West Coast as a bittering blend. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of that big floral aromatic spice to this one, and the green side of the hops for me really leans towards that big floral aromaticity. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of grassiness out of this one as well, and I think that kind of complements the Nelson Sauvin side of the beer very well. But the other thing, as I say to you, that this could be, Nelson Sauvin has a hell of a spiciness to it if you use it as an early addition hop. So maybe they are actually using just a little bit of these hops that they mention on here as the bittering hop as well. But yeah, the aroma on the green side of things is very nice, very big and floral aromatic, and I think that helps promote the idea of a stronger wheaty bitiness the more that you smell of it too. The fruits are kind of what you would expect if you know the hops that are in this beer. So for me, you do get a lovely kind of juicy mango backbone to the beer. That's the Citra that's giving you that. You can smell that lovely kind of juicy mango note to it. But the more that you smell of it, the kind of more oily tangerine orange kind of comes out, and then you also get a kind of gooseberry quality from this beer as well, I think, and that's a mixture of the Nelson Sauvin and the Citra. Citra can give you some lemon limey notes and a little bit of a gooseberry lychee sort of thing, depending on what kind of malt base it's in, but I think I do get a slightly distinct gooseberry note out of this one. But of course, for me, the thing that really dominates and sits there on the front of the nose is that white, green, grapey element that you get from the Nelson Sauvin. That's the trademark of that hop. It's absolutely lovely, and that's kind of what pushes the grassiness out of the green side of the hops in this beer as well. So yeah, at the front of the nose you really get that Nelson Sauvin white, green, grapey thing, a bit of gooseberry in there. You can smell the tangerine oranges in behind it and the mango, but I think the Nelson Sauvin really takes the lead on the fruity side of this beer. So yeah, this one for me, it's a really, really lovely smelling beer, and overall in the New England IPA spectrum, I would say that it leans towards that soft, juicy kind of thing, but the more you smell of it, the more floral and aromatic it gets, and the more kind of bitey it gets on the wheaty side of things too. But the soft, fruity notes out of this are lovely and oily and lovely and juicy at the same time. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into the beer, but we are going to taste this one now. This is the Bubble Dust, an 8% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, double IPA from Moonraker Brewing Company in Auburn, to the northeast of Sacramento in Northern California, over on the west coast of America. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, that's a really damn good beer, I have to say. Damn nice. And again, it's very well balanced actually, this one, in terms of its malt base. It's got a little bit of wheaty bitiness, it's got a really nice little bit of kind of oaty smoothness as well. I'm going to say straight away, thumbs up to Moonraker Brewing Company. That's a hell of a first impression of the brewery this gives. Yeah. And what I'm impressed with as well is that this beer is still in such good condition when it's come all the way over here to Scandinavia. That is pretty damn impressive, I have to say. So yeah, that's kudos to Kiosk, that. I have to say, Kiosk are getting these beers, these American beers, in good condition, and we're getting stuff from all over the States these days. I've had really interesting beers from Chicago, out of Kiosk. I had one from the other day from Florida, from Ology Brewing Company. I've got another one from New Jersey, and I think I've got a couple from Ohio in the fridge as well, actually, that I'm going to review over the next little while. We're getting beers from all over the different states these days, whereas it used to always be California, Colorado, and things like Founders and stuff from Michigan. I'm loving the variety that we're getting out of the States these days, because it does let you learn a little bit about new, different places and things. But this is another lovely example of the New England Hazy IPA, and I'm not surprised, not surprised. You can see immediately why this brewery are so highly rated. But the other thing that I take comfort in with trying these American beers is that you can see the quality of the stuff that we are getting over here in Europe is on par with what's being produced in New England and in California and stuff like that. That's a great comfort with trying these American beers. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one for you then and describe it properly. So, to describe this one then, we've got, straight away with this beer you get that nice kind of crisp white bready quality just blanketing the middle of your tongue, and that kind of forms the baseline of the beer. You can feel the kind of crisp white bready quality just pushing its way out of the beer, and that just sits there. That forms the backbone of the beer. When you go towards the kind of back third of your tongue, you start to get more of the wheaty bitiness out of this one, and that I find that really nice actually. I mean, as I say, the base layer of this beer is a nice kind of crisp white bready quality there. When you reach the, as I say, when you move towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel that white breadiness just thicken up a little bit. And then as you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel some of that wheaty bitiness coming out of the beer. What I would say about this one is that the bitiness isn't so It isn't so kind of punchy, if you like. It's got a little bit more, it does have a wee bit of a graininess to it and a wee bit of a bitiness, but the bitiness that you get out of it is not so pungent, if that makes sense. But as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, you can feel that the wheatiness just smoothens out a little bit. Then as you move into that middle third of your tongue, it just goes down a little bit, and then it moves further forward into the it just kind of moves more into that kind of nice oaty creaminess. So on top of that kind of white bready quality, you get a kind of layer of smooth oaty character just coming out of the beer, and I really like how that goes together. If you focus on the centre of your palate, you might get just a little bit of a kind of very slight kind of butter candy Werther's Original type thing. That might be a bit of placebo on my part, because so many Scandinavian New England IPAs have that these days. But yeah, you do get a little bit of that, of a little bit of sweetness right in this middle of that kind of oaty circle, if you like, that you have in the middle of the palate there. So I like how that goes together. The malty side of this beer for me is very straight shooting, and I like how that goes together. Sometimes that's what you want. You don't need to make these beers too complex to make them good, and this is another example of that. I think it's a very straight shooting malt base. I think you've got pale malt in here forming the backbone. It's got a little bit of that kind of crisp white bready note to it. You get the more wheaty notes at the back of the palate, and it's quite a smooth, I think the more and more that I drink of this, the more smooth the wheat is. Then you get the oaty creaminess just sitting there in the middle of the palate. On the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, you get a nice little bit of earthiness coming out of this one. And as you move further forward, it gets more kind of floral aromatic. You do get that nice big kind of spicy floral note out of the beer, but I wouldn't describe this one as being overly floral and overly bitter. It's got quite a nice smooth bitterness to it, I would say. Yeah, it's definitely one of the lower bitterness double IPAs that I've come across. And we'll talk about that a bit later though, but I would say this one is definitely less bitter than some of the other New England doubles that I've come across before. But yeah, you get a nice little bit of floral aromaticity building out of this one as you move further forward on the side of the palate. Then there's a wee bit of spiciness to it. As I say, I do wonder about, you know, Columbus Tomahawk or something like that being the bittering hop in this beer, and then as you go round the front curve of the palate, the beer is just a little bit lighter and grassy. Front third of the tongue, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And again, it's kind of what you would expect from these hops. If you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you've got a nice little bit of a, there is a wee bit of a slightly passion fruity or darker tropical fruit there, just sitting on that border between the kind of front third of your tongue and the middle third of your tongue. You do get a little bit of that kind of bready graininess out of the beer, but then yeah, as you move further forward from that, that slightly darker passion fruity grapefruit thing quickly disappears, and you get the soft juicy mangoes that you expect of the Citra. As you move further forward from that, you might get a few other notes from the Citra, but yeah, you get that lovely kind of how do you say, you get a little bit of a, you can feel that the beer, in terms of its fruitiness, it just gets more and more oily, and then you start to get the other notes from the other hops coming out of this one as well. So yeah, as you move further forward on that, you get a bit more of the oily kind of tangerine notes from the Mosaic, and then as you move even further forward, you've got a little bit more of a kind of gooseberry note out of the beer, and that's one of the little complexities you can get from the Citra. But the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, the more and more Nelson Sauvin you get. You can feel the nice white green grapey notes just sitting there behind the kind of front tip of your tongue, which is very nice. So yeah, that white green grapey note from the Nelson Sauvin, that really lingers there into the aftertaste. The things that really linger into the aftertaste with the beer is that Nelson Sauvin. I think the Mosaic isn't quite as prominent in this one as I thought it was going to be. The tangerine oranges are not as oily as I thought they were going to be from the Aroma, because you could detect them quite easily in the Aroma. But for me, it's the Nelson Sauvin that comes out a little bit more. I don't know if the beer leans a little bit more towards the Nelson Sauvin, but yeah, the white green grapey notes and the fruity end of this beer really do linger a little bit. It's almost got a little bit of that kind of gooseberry thing as well, which is quite interesting. And as I say, that's a complexity of the Citra, but I find the Citra and the Nelson Sauvin a bit more dominant in this one than the Mosaic. Yeah, I would say that. I mean, the orangey, the slightly sweeter orange, it comes out in the beginning of the flavour, but then yeah, I just do think the kind of mangoey notes of the Citra and the more green, white, grapey notes of the Nelson Sauvin start to dominate in the flavour a little bit more. But yeah, Nelson Sauvin and Citra, they work together very well themselves anyway, so yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it really leans, to me, it leans towards that white, green, grapey sort of thing the further that you go into the aftertaste, and you will notice one or two little grainy notes, I think, coming out underneath the fruity side in this beer as well. But yeah, overall, I would describe this as being quite a smooth New England IPA. It's not the creamiest of ones that I've come across. I actually find this one has a little bit more of that kind of crisp bready quality, but it is another lovely example of the style. So massive thumbs up to Moonraker Brewing Company for this one. I think they've produced a really solid beer for this one. So yeah, let's have a little look at the mouthfeel then to round off the video. So yeah, I would describe this beer, how would we do this? I think it's top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied. Yeah, I think top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one. It does have an element of creaminess to it. It actually feels very clean as well, actually. It's got a little bit of that kind of cleanliness almost that you get from some of the Scandinavian breweries, and I don't know if Auburn is quite a mountain. It looks as if it's starting to get into the kind of Californian mountains and stuff like that, so not surprising that the water comes across as quite pure and quite clean. Water can make a great difference to the beer, of course, and I really do think that you can taste the difference in waters, and I've seen that from trying beers from various different countries. But yeah, it comes across as really nice and clean. And its mouthfeel as well is having a little bit of a creamy and also quite crisp backbone to it as well, but the carbonation is very smooth. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this beer might be about 40 IBUs. It's not the most bitter of New England IPAs that I've come across. I have come across New England double IPAs that are 50 and 60 IBUs. It does strike me as being a little bit lower bitterness, but there's nothing wrong with that. It suits the profile that the beer has. The malt base, like I said, it has got a degree of crispness and a bit of graininess to it, some oaty creaminess, but I would say this is definitely one of the more kind of bready, slightly crisper leaning New England IPAs. I do, on the back third of your palate, like I say, you do get a little bit more graininess and crispness out of this beer the further that you go. It's definitely not one of the creamier New England IPAs that you're going to come across, but regardless, the malt base in this one, I think, is really nicely done, and it's nice to try different New England IPAs from different breweries. You're always going to get different nuances from brewery to brewery, of course, but the fruity side of this beer for me, I'd say that it's quite juicy rather than being kind of creamy and juicy. It's got a nice wet juiciness to it as well, and I think the water helps promote that. But yeah, the fruity notes are quite wet and quite well rounded in this one in my mind. But yeah, I think safe to say with this one, it's another lovely example of the New England double IPA, and it's definitely cool to try another one of these from a different California brewery. And if this is a good kind of benchmark to take for judging Moonraker Brewing Company, I have to say that I am very, very curious about some of the other beers that they've done. So I'd love to have a go at the Yojo IPA, which apparently was the one that kind of kicked everything off for them. So fingers crossed I can get a hold of one of those at some stage and try that. But yeah, been very, very impressed with this one, and I think this is definitely a very nice introduction to Moonraker Brewing Company. So yeah, probably a good place to round off this review then, so let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Bubble Dust New England Double IPA, coming in at 8% ABV from Moonraker Brewing Company in Auburn in Northern California over in America. Lovely, lovely example of the style. Quite a nice, wet, drinkable New England double IPA. As I always say with some of these American ones, they're stupidly drinkable. You know, the ones that we have over here in Scandinavia, I think, are slightly thicker in the mouthfeel, but this is a really nice and ridiculously drinkable example of the style. But well done to Moonraker Brewing Company for this, and as I said, I hope that I can review the Yojo for you at some point soon. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Moonraker Brewing Company. This was my very first review that I did from these guys, and I was certainly impressed with this one. But yeah, hopefully we can return to these guys at some point in the future. You will see more American reviews over the next little while. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Bubble Dust New England Hazy Double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from Moonraker Brewing Company in Auburn, California, over on the American West Coast. Slange, skull, cheers, and thanks for watching.